Okay, we're going to go over a few things about editorial format because an editorial is a little different than an essay. And as we go through this material, we'll be using Cornell Note format. You may have noticed the objective. I'm able to recognize the basic parts of an editorial and know how an editorial is different from an essay. We will eventually address the questions. How is an editorial different from an essay? And why does an editorial end with a call to action? So as we scroll down in the notes, you're going to see that there is a specific section for notes. And there are headings, so this way we can keep our notes organized. Let's first start off with purpose of an editorial. The purpose of an editorial is to persuade. You want the audience to make certain changes or adjust things to stop doing things. But the main goal is to get the audience to agree with you and to agree to make some changes. You will offer a problem. You're going to point out that a problem exists, prove that the problem exists, and then offer a solution to that problem. So you do have to point out that the problem is real, the issue is serious, and you also have to prove that your solution will work. So that is the purpose of an editorial. Now, in some ways, an intro paragraph is like the intro paragraph you would find in an essay. You're still going to have background, but in an editorial, the background is more pronounced. You're going to give the basic 5W1H. Who, what, when, where, how, why. In about 2 to 3 sentences, you're going to try to give the general information about all those things. Once again, who, what, when, where, why, and how. There will also be a thesis, and as we know, a thesis has to have a subject, a controversy, something not everybody knows or agrees with, and at least 2 or 3 reasons why. But in an editorial, you don't have to do an attention grabber. So for those of you who are like, I'd like to try to go for a 4 in A, I'm going to recommend doing an attention grabber. Preferably a rhetorical question, a question that can't be answered with yes or no, or a single word. But that's for the people going for a 4. Otherwise, no, you don't have to do an attention grabber when you write an editorial introduction, just for the editorial introduction. For the body paragraphs, there are a couple things you want to consider. Yes, you're still going to need claims. You're still going to need evidence, a direct quote. You're still going to need explanation, transitions, citations. But you want to pick the strongest evidence, the best quote that's going to prove that the problem exists. And when you get to the solution, you're going to have to explain how the solution's going to work. Now, when we write the body paragraphs, you're also going to have to consider that some people in the audience are not going to like your solution. So you will have to come up with one challenge, one possible problem those who read your solution will have with your information, with your solution. Why might someone not like your solution? Why might someone think your solution won't work? You will have to come up with one challenge to your solution. But here's the thing. You're also going to have to think, how can I prove that what they're saying about my solution is wrong? That their idea is either misinformed or flawed, you're going to have to prove that your solution will work and that the challenge is incorrect. But otherwise, the body paragraphs are your basic body paragraphs. For the concluding paragraph, you will have a restated thesis. It's going to start with a restated thesis. So you will still have the controversy, the subject, your reasons. But remember, with a restated thesis, you need to use some synonyms. When you give the reasons, now that we've seen all of your evidence, you're going to need to be more specific. And then there will be a summary. There will be a summary. But in this case, the summary is really you're going back into all your body paragraphs. You're looking at your claims, not the counterclaims, just the claims. And you're going to restate them, reword them. That's your summary. The biggest difference between an essay concluding paragraph and an editorial concluding paragraph is how the concluding paragraph ends. Editorials, their concluding paragraphs end with a call to action. What is a call to action? You have to tell the audience specifically what part of your solution they can do to help fix the problem. And the more specific you are, the better. So although there are some differences, as we can see with an editorial, of course, there are some similarities. Like, once again, you're still going to have to check the grammar, spelling, capitalization, punctuation, sentence structure. You will still need citations. We don't want to get marked down for plagiarism. Your explanation and examples need to be clear. You do need good examples. Proper transitions and setups, according to the research as stated in the article, things like that. So those things won't change. So hopefully this gives you some insight into the format of an editorial. And that's basically the information that we need to know.